Most people think shifting your reality is this long, complicated journey, that it takes months, maybe even years of visualization, deep healing, and endless effort to finally see a breakthrough. They believe alignment only comes after you've struggled enough, checked off every spiritual box, and mastered every technique out there. But here's the truth, no one told you. The real quantum leap doesn't take time, it doesn't require struggle. It happens in a single moment so subtle, most people miss it entirely. It's not when you push harder, it's not when you do more, it's the moment something inside you stops forcing, stops doubting, stops chasing. That's when the field responds. Because the quantum field doesn't care about how much effort you put in. It responds to the frequency you hold right now, and the cleanest, most powerful frequency. It's always found in simplicity, but simplicity scares the ego. Because if it's simple, what was all the struggle for? If it's simple, maybe you were always closer than you thought. That's why most people sabotage their own shift. Not because they can't do it, but because they don't trust that it could really be this easy. Because here's the reality, the version of you you've been trying to reach has never been far away. It's not across a gap of time, or buried under years of self-work. It's been here, in the quiet, waiting for you to drop the noise long enough to hear it. Every moment you chose alignment over reaction, every breath you took instead of forcing a fix, you were tuning closer to that version. And now, you're standing in their world. From this point forward, the game changes. It's no longer about building from scratch. It's about maintaining a field so clean and so steady that the external world has no choice but to sustain the reality you're holding. This is signal maintenance, and it's the most overlooked skill in quantum shifting. Maintenance doesn't mean standing still, it means adjusting with precision. You'll start noticing subtle shifts before they fully form, a conversation that feels lighter, a decision that used to cause tension now landing with ease, an interaction that would have triggered you leaving you unshaken. These are the ripples of a stabilized frequency. But here's the challenge. Once the new reality feels normal, the ego will try to stir things again. It might whisper, "Is this it? Shouldn't we be doing more?" It might look for problems to solve, simply because stillness feels uncomfortable. This is where you must remember, you are no longer creating from urgency. You are creating from saturation. In this phase, the most important work you can do is to keep your environment, your thoughts, and your body in coherence with the state you've locked in. This is where frequency hygiene matters. Spend more time around people who normalize the reality you now hold. Limit conversations, media, and habits that reintroduce the vibration you left behind. Give your nervous system daily anchors, breath, movement, quiet moments, to remind it of safety and stability. As you do this, the field deepens its alignment with you. Your reality stops shifting and starts staying shifted. And in that space, you'll notice a new kind of momentum, one that doesn't feel like acceleration, but like inevitability. Because once you stop interrupting the frequency of the self who already lives your vision, life can only mirror it back to you. And from that point on, the shift is no longer something you reach for. It's simply the air you breathe. The potential timeline begins to take shape around you. Conversations shift. Doors that were once closed begin to open. People, opportunities, and circumstances start moving toward you as if drawn by an invisible current. And yet, it's not magic, it's mechanics. When your attention is unwavering, the field receives a clear, uninterrupted signal. This is what turns possibility into inevitability. You're no longer broadcasting mixed messages. You're transmitting one steady frequency that says, "This is who I am now." But here's the nuance most people miss. You don't hold this signal by force. You don't grip your vision so tightly that you choke the life out of it. You hold it the way you hold your breath when floating in water, relaxed, steady, trusting the buoyancy to do its work. The moment you start thrashing, you sink. This is why the real mastery of quantum shifting is not about willpower. It's about willingness. Willingness to stay with the frequency even when the external hasn't caught up yet. Willingness to remain in resonance even when the mind is begging for proof. Willingness to trust that the invisible is reorganizing faster than the visible can display it. And as you keep choosing that willingness, something profound happens. The identity you were trying to become stops feeling like a role you're playing. It starts feeling like the most natural expression of you. The old identity loses its pull because there's nothing left to return to. From here, you begin to experience life differently. Decisions feel lighter. Alignment replaces effort. You stop asking, how do I make this happen? And start living from how can I express more of who I already am. This shift in question changes everything, because the field doesn't respond to need. It responds to embodiment. The more consistently you can hold this embodied state, the more the quantum field mirrors it back. Not gradually, not reluctantly, but with precision. The synchronicities increase, the lucky breaks multiply, and you begin to see that reality isn't something you chase, it's something you select. So the practice now is simple. Keep your attention pure, keep your state coherent, and let the field do the heavy lifting. Because when you stop scattering your energy across timelines you don't want, the one you do want becomes unavoidable. The potential timeline begins to take shape around you, and it's not subtle. The people you meet seem to arrive at the perfect moment. Ideas come together without forcing them. Conversations open doors you didn't even know existed. It feels as though the universe has been quietly setting the stage for you, not because it suddenly noticed you, but because you finally became a match to the scene that was always ready. But here's the truth, most never grasp: this isn't luck. This isn't fate choosing you. This is mechanics. When your attention is unwavering, when your state holds steady, the field receives an unbroken signal. That signal doesn't just attract, it selects. And selection is power. Out of infinite versions of reality, you've chosen one, and by holding that choice consistently, you've made it inevitable. Still, many sabotage themselves here. The mind, trained to equate progress with constant action, will try to pull you back into hustle. It will whisper, if you don't push, it won't happen. If you don't check, you'll lose momentum. And if you fall for this, you start sending static again. Doubt, urgency, need, and the field simply reflects that back. The secret is not to grip your vision harder, but to relax into it more completely. Think about floating in water. The more you tense and thrash, the faster you sink. But when you trust the water to hold you, you rise. Your frequency works the same way. The tighter you grip, the more resistance you create. The more you relax into alignment, the stronger the field can respond. This is the shift from willpower to willingness. Willingness to stay in frequency even when the physical hasn't caught up yet. Willingness to hold your tone when the mind is screaming for proof. Willingness to trust the unseen long enough for the seen to match it. When you live like this, something subtle but profound happens. The future self you've been trying to become stops feeling like an aspiration. It starts feeling like you. The gap between then and now disappears because you're no longer relating to the new timeline as something ahead of you. You've stepped inside it, and once you're inside, there's nothing left to chase. From here, life begins to feel different in ways you can't measure on a to-do list. Decisions feel lighter because you're no longer making them from fear or scarcity. Opportunities that used to require effort now flow toward you without pulling. You stop asking, how do I get there? And start asking, how do I express more of who I already am? This is the moment where manifestation becomes maintenance. You're not trying to manifest anymore. You're sustaining the conditions that allow the field to keep reflecting your chosen reality. And here is where the real mastery comes in. Frequency hygiene. Frequency hygiene is about protecting the clarity you've built. It means surrounding yourself with people, spaces, and inputs that match or elevate your signal. It means identifying and eliminating leaks, those small compromises, old habits, or draining interactions that slowly pull you back into the vibration you've outgrown. It means giving your nervous system daily anchors, breathwork, intentional movement, time in silence, so it remembers safety and stability as your baseline. When you live this way, you stop asking whether the shift will hold. You know it will, because you've removed the conditions that used to unravel it. The field no longer has to catch you when you collapse. There is no collapse, and that's when momentum becomes self-sustaining. Not the frantic momentum of hustle, but the natural acceleration of alignment. Things start to happen faster, not because you're rushing, but because you're no longer scattering your energy across conflicting timelines. All of you is in one place, one signal, one choice, and the quantum has no option but to mirror it. So the real work from here isn't about adding more. It's about holding the signal you've chosen, protecting it, and letting it deepen until it becomes the only way you know how to exist. When that happens, the question shifts from when will it arrive, to how much more can I expand from here? Because once you understand that reality is not something you chase but something you select and sustain, you'll stop living like a seeker and start living like the selector, the one who chooses, holds, and allows reality to meet them exactly where they stand. So how do you live like this? How do you make selection and stability your default instead of slipping back into reaction and doubt? It comes down to creating a daily structure that protects your frequency the way a strong foundation protects a building. The first step is morning alignment. Before you check your phone, before you engage with the world, anchor yourself, decide your state for the day, not your tasks, not your goals, your state. It might be calm certainty, playful curiosity, grounded clarity. Say it to yourself. Feel it in your body. Let it color your breathing and your posture. This is the note you'll hold all day. The second step is midday recalibration. Life will test you. Things will happen that could pull you out of alignment. An email, a conversation, a delay. Don't wait for the day to spiral before you notice. Set reminders every few hours to pause for 60 seconds. Breathe slowly. Release tension from your jaw, your shoulders, your belly. Ask, am I still in my chosen state, or have I slipped? If you've slipped, return without judgment. The third step is evening integration. Before bed, reflect on where you held your signal and where it wavered. This isn't about criticism, it's about recognition. Every moment you held the line is proof that you can. Every moment you wavered is simply feedback for tomorrow. Gratitude here isn't just emotional, it's magnetic. When you end the day acknowledging your alignment, you teach your nervous system that this is what matters most. Over time, these micro-practices train your body and mind to stay in coherence naturally. You won't have to get into state anymore, you'll live there. And when you live there, the field stops treating your desired reality as a request and starts treating it as a constant. This is also where boundaries take on a new dimension. You'll begin to notice how certain environments, people, or habits subtly erode your frequency. Protecting your signal means protecting yourself from those leaks. Not from a place of judgment, but from a place of clarity. You'll know when to say no. You'll know when to step back. You'll know when to choose silence over noise. As your stability grows, so does your influence on the field. People will feel the difference in you, even if they can't name it. They'll sense the steadiness, the clarity, the absence of inner conflict. And this, more than anything you say or do, is what draws aligned opportunities and relationships into your life. From here, the expansion is limitless. You're no longer chasing manifestations, you're expanding expressions. The external will continue to shift in your favor, but the real victory is internal. You've become someone who doesn't lose themselves in the waiting, who doesn't collapse when the external hasn't caught up yet, who knows that their state is the true point of creation. This is the way reality bends, not through force but through sustained, unshakable alignment. And once you've experienced it, you'll never go back to chasing. You'll know without question that the shift isn't something that happens to you. You are the shift. And here's the beauty of it. Once you realize you are the shift, you stop waiting for permission to live as that version. You stop bargaining with your old self. Stop negotiating with your doubts. Stop rehearsing your future like it's a role you haven't yet earned. You simply inhabit it. This is when life begins to mirror you with precision. The calls come in at the right time. The opportunities fit without forcing. The random encounters carry the exact energy you've been holding. And you see with clarity that none of it was random at all. But this is also when the final test often appears. It's subtle. It comes as an invitation to step back into your old patterns. An old fear, a familiar dynamic, a situation that tempts you to react instead of respond. It's not here to punish you. It's here to check your stability. To ask, will you hold the signal? Even now, pass this test and something permanent clicks into place. Your nervous system no longer treats the new timeline as unfamiliar. It adopts it as home. And from that point on, reality doesn't need to catch up to you anymore. It moves with you. From here, expansion is a natural consequence. You'll find yourself dreaming bigger, not because you're lacking, but because you have space. You'll take aligned action without hesitation, not because you're desperate, but because you're curious. You'll explore possibilities without fear of losing what you have, because you know the field doesn't take away. It only matches and multiplies what you sustain. So if you're in that space right now, if it feels quiet, still, even uneventful, understand this: you might be standing in the exact stillness the field needs to lock your timeline into place. Don't rush it, don't poke at it, hold it, breathe into it, let it become your new default. Because the moment you decide that this is who you are, not who you're becoming, not who you hope to be, but who you already are, the quantum field stops treating your vision as a request and starts treating it as reality. And that's when you'll see, you never had to fight for the shift. You never had to earn it, you only had to stop stepping out of it. The rest was inevitable, and when you truly let that sink in, something begins to move beneath the surface. Choices start to feel easier, almost obvious. The pressure to figure it out dissolves, because you're no longer trying to control outcomes. You're aligning with them. You notice how the smallest decisions, when made from this state, have an amplified effect. From here, life becomes a feedback loop. Every moment you hold the tone, the field mirrors it back with new opportunities, new connections, subtle confirmations that you are exactly where you need to be. This is not coincidence, it's coherence. And coherence has momentum. The more you live inside this state, the more you realize that it's not about adding force, it's about removing interference. You stop leaking energy into doubt, into proving, into chasing timelines that were never meant for you. And the more energy you conserve, the stronger and cleaner your broadcast becomes. And then you start to see it. People responding to you differently, without you changing a word. Situations bending in your favor, without you pushing. Doors opening, because your presence alone signals alignment. The shift is no longer an event on the horizon. It's the environment you move through every single day. From here, the work is simple. Refine, hold, and let the field keep organizing around you. Because the moment you commit to staying in this signal, the version of reality that matches it has no choice but to meet you. And the longer you hold it, the more natural it becomes. At first, you have to remind yourself to return to the signal, to pause, to breathe, to release the urge to check if it's working. But over time, it stops feeling like a practice and starts feeling like your default state. You walk into rooms differently. You speak with fewer words but more weight. You make decisions without hesitation, because the hesitation is gone, replaced by a quiet knowing that whatever you choose from this place will align. This is when the external begins to accelerate, in ways the mind can't keep up with. Things you thought would take months or years unfold in days. People you never imagined meeting are suddenly in your orbit. Situations that once felt heavy resolve without you having to intervene. It's not that you're lucky, it's that your frequency has become so coherent. The field has no friction in delivering what matches it. But here's the part most people overlook. Stability at this level isn't about doing the same thing forever. It's about listening more deeply. You'll notice subtle cues, when it's time to act, when it's time to rest, when to speak, when to stay silent. You become so attuned to your own resonance that you can feel the difference between a choice made from alignment and one made from fear before you even take the first step. And as this attunement sharpens, your capacity grows. You realize the shift was never about getting to one perfect timeline. It was about learning to navigate them fluidly. The more stable you are, the more fluid you become. The more fluid you become, the more options open in front of you. And instead of asking, will I get there? The only question left is, which version do I want to experience next? From here, expansion stops being a goal and becomes your nature. And once expansion becomes your nature, you stop fearing change altogether. Shifts that used to feel disruptive now feel like upgrades. Endings don't trigger panic, they trigger curiosity. You understand that every adjustment in your external world is simply a reflection of an adjustment you've already made internally. This is where freedom lives, not in controlling every detail of your life, but in knowing you can meet any timeline with the same unshakable frequency. You're no longer negotiating with circumstances, no longer asking, why is this happening to me? Instead, you're asking, how is this shaping me into the next expression of who I am? And in this state, life moves differently. Opportunities don't just arrive, they arrive ready. Relationships don't just appear, they align instantly. Challenges don't just resolve, they evolve you. You're not manifesting from lack, you're manifesting from overflow. The field responds in kind. It recognizes that you're no longer sending mixed signals, no longer oscillating between trust and doubt. Your broadcast is steady, clean, magnetic. And because the field can now read you without distortion, it can organize with precision. From here, your role becomes simple. Keep refining your signal, keep removing the static, keep allowing the version of you who already lives the life you want to take the lead in every decision, every interaction, every moment. Because the more you live like this, the less effort it takes to create. Creation becomes a byproduct of your being, not the result of constant doing. And that's when the shift stops being a single moment in your life and becomes the way you live every moment of your life. And once you realize the shift is a capacity, not a destination, you begin to play with it. You test it, not out of doubt, but out of curiosity. You see how far you can stretch it without losing your center. You explore timelines, not because you need them, but because you want to experience them. This is where creation becomes art. You're no longer chasing the big breakthrough. You're weaving countless micro shifts into your daily life, each one aligning you more deeply with the core frequency you've chosen. You might shift the energy of a conversation with a single sentence. You might redirect the flow of an entire week with one moment of conscious stillness. You might collapse months of effort into a single inspired action, because the field no longer needs to build what you're calling in. It's already there, waiting for your readiness. And readiness, you see now, has nothing to do with preparation and everything to do with permission. When you give yourself permission to hold a reality without questioning whether you deserve it, the field has no choice but to confirm it. From here, expansion compounds. The energy you once spent wrestling with self-doubt or forcing outcomes is now freed up for creation. You dream bigger without triggering fear, because your nervous system is conditioned to see change as safe. You make bolder moves without needing guarantees, because your certainty no longer depends on immediate proof. It's in this space that the so-called impossible becomes ordinary. Things that used to require years of planning and effort now unfold with an elegance you couldn't have engineered if you tried. And every time it happens, you're reminded that the shift was never about forcing reality to comply. It was about aligning yourself so cleanly that reality had no other option. From this vantage point, the question is no longer can I create it, but how much more of myself am I willing to let through? Because the more of yourself you allow, the more the field reveals. And the more the field reveals, the more you realize there is no ceiling here, only layers you haven't yet chosen to experience. ChatGPT is saw. And once you realize the shift is a capacity, not a destination, you begin to play with it. You test it, not out of doubt, but out of curiosity. You see how far you can stretch it without losing your center. You explore timelines, not because you need them, but because you want to experience them. This is where creation becomes art. You're no longer chasing the big breakthrough. You're weaving countless micro shifts into your daily life, each one aligning you more deeply with the core frequency you've chosen. You might shift the energy of a conversation with a single sentence. You might redirect the flow of an entire week with one moment of conscious stillness. You might collapse months of effort into a single inspired action, because the field no longer needs to build what you're calling in. It's already there, waiting for your readiness. And readiness, you see now, has nothing to do with preparation and everything to do with permission. When you give yourself permission to hold a reality without questioning whether you deserve it, the field has no choice but to confirm it. From here, expansion compounds. The energy you once spent wrestling with self-doubt or forcing outcomes is now freed up for creation. You dream bigger without triggering fear, because your nervous system is conditioned to see change as safe. You make bolder moves without needing guarantees, because your certainty no longer depends on immediate proof. It's in this space that the so-called impossible becomes ordinary. Things that used to require years of planning and effort now unfold with an elegance you couldn't have engineered if you tried. And every time it happens, you're reminded that the shift was never about forcing reality to comply. It was about aligning yourself so cleanly that reality had no other option. From this vantage point, the question is no longer can I create it, but how much more of myself am I willing to let through? Because the more of yourself you allow, the more the field reveals. And the more the field reveals, the more you realize there is no ceiling here, only layers you haven't yet chosen to experience.